Hi Reynas! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Vijayreyna. For those of you guys who are new, I am an up-and-coming pageant analyst and I make videos about pageantry. So if you want to join the Reyna family, all you have to do is go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. My social media will be pinned in the pinned comment section as well as in the description box down below. So I wanted to make this a video. It's a little different than my usual content. Also, I apologize for the lighting and the camera quality. I am not in my home. I'm not going to be at home for the next around 2 weeks or so. So the lighting and the camera quality and the settings are going to be very different all around for the next few videos, so I do apologize greatly for that in advance. I want to talk about something different. So in the world of pageantry, we have a lot of different pageant analysts. You have me, who just came out of the blue and are new, and that's a common story of many of us pageant fans have a very big passion for pageantry, and we have a love for the contestants, and we have opinions. We want to share those opinions, and more than anything, we want to build a community. So a lot of us take that passion for pageantry that we have and we just put it on a camera and then we post it onto YouTube. And in the world of pageantry, there are obviously countries that hold a little bit more popularity than others. Some notable countries may be Colombia, Venezuela, the Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, maybe some would say India, though, depends. Those are some powerhouse or sash factor country pageant countries. For those of you guys who are not familiar with what a sash factor country is, essentially, I'll try to explain it in the best way possible. It's a little tricky to explain. Pageant countries are countries that have a robust or a large pageant fan base, meaning that usually it's referencing to Miss Universe, but typically it means that the countrymen of this country are really into pageantry. So Filipinos love pageantry. Typically, there's a lot of Filipino pageant fans, Venezuelanos as well, Colombians as well. It's just some countries that really are passionate about pageantry, and it's almost like it's a big thing there. It's a big thing to watch Miss Universe. So and other pageants as well, the pageant systems as well. So if you are elected as, for example, Miss Universe Philippines, you are considered a sash factor country because you were what on your sash? Philippines. And Philippines is what? A pageant country. So what does a sash factor country have to do with a pageant analyst? So a big thing that has been coming up in the pageant community when it comes to pageant analysts, and some of the most famous ones are going to be like Danny Walker, Luis Porteles, and then a host of other ones. Myself, although I'm nowhere near the same popularity at this point, and or I don't have as much of an audience as those two, and those two are just the first ones that come into my name. It's nothing against them. I have so much respect for Danny Walker and Luis Porteles and what they have done, and I actually aspire to be like them in the pageant space. So I just couldn't think of anyone else off the top of my head. Be extra with Dell, I guess. But yeah, so a lot of people, for pageant analysts, not just them two, but many across the board, have felt like there is some biasy. Maybe when pageant analysts like myself or the others that you guys may watch on YouTube, when we recap pageants and pageant systems like Miss Universe, Miss Grand, whatever, we tend to focus more on these sash factor countries. We tend to focus more on the Philippines. We tend to focus more on Thailand. We tend to focus more on India, Colombia, Venezuela. And some people are privy to the fact that, yes, you are right. If you talk about a certain country that is a sash factor country and you highlight their contestant, yeah, with that oftentimes comes views. With that oftentimes comes likes. With that oftentimes comes subscribers, or as I like to call them, family members and supporters, because I don't like the word subscriber. It just is too dehumanizing. Anyways, that's a different topic. So you guys are right. You guys are right that it does. It would be ignorant to say that it does not. With that being said, I don't think, excuse the random lawn mower you guys may be hearing. With that being said, I do not think that it is inherently bad that pageant analysts focus on countries like the Philippines, South Africa, Venezuela, Colombia, or their country of origin, USA, whatever, these big pageant countries. And I don't think it's inherently on purpose either. The fact of the matter is that a lot of these pageant countries, like South Africa, like the Philippines, like Venezuela, like Thailand, they put out a lot of content about their queens. I mean, if you have followed Miss Universe Philippines, and that's I'm most familiar with Miss Universe Philippines. Also, a lot of it is conducted in English, so it's easier for me to follow. And I got into pageantry because of Filipinos, so I'm just very familiar with it. If you watch Miss Universe Philippines, they have a whole I mean, they run their show better than Miss Universe runs their show. Like, we get more content out of Miss Universe Philippines than we do out of Miss Universe itself, especially this last edition. And so it's really exciting, and it's really, you get to know the contestants really well during like Miss Universe Philippines. And this is true for other countries as well, like Miss Universe Thailand, Colombia, Venezuela, etc. Now, because of a language barrier, maybe some of us, like myself, have a more difficult time following other country systems and other pageant systems. But for countries like the Philippines that are more English friendly, and of course they speak Tagalog, and they may speak like, you might hear like Bisaya or like other languages as well, like Guyanin or whatever. But for the most part, it's a lot of it is in English. It's easy to follow. It's easy to get to know the contestants, and a lot of foreign interest has been invested in the Philippines. Now, I cannot speak for every other pageant vlogger, and I'm mostly talking about the Philippines in this video because a lot of times in the comments, that's what you'll hear the most. Oh, there's another pageant vlogger talking about the Philippines. Here's another pageant vlogger talking about the Philippines. They just want to be popular. They just want to be popular. They just want to be popular. And again, I'm not going to deny the fact that talking about countries like the Philippines or Venezuela or whatever, Peru, wherever, doesn't lend you to getting a larger audience. It does. It does. If you guys go on my own channel, my most watched video was my review of Miss Universe Philippines 2024 Chelsea Manalo. Now, you guys might be saying, Vijay, why are you calling yourself out? Are you trying to say that you're biased? Are you trying to say that you have a bias towards the Philippines? Guys, everyone has a bias towards somebody. Being biased is innately to be human. Human nature inherently has bias. Now, as a pageant analyst, I try my best to not be biased. Or I will say, this is my sentimental favorite. But I will also recognize, like other contestants who step up to the plate. By the end of the day, us as pageant analysts, for example, this last edition of Miss Universe had 130 contestants. It ended up being like 125 or 124, but it started out with 130. It's just not plausible. And Louis Portelis talked about this in his Miss Universe recap. So I implore you to go watch his video and he speak to this. It's really difficult to get to know 130 contestants. So at the end of the day, the ones who put out more content, the ones who are maybe more Sash Factor countries that are being more talked about and they're circulating on reposts on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, those are the ones that are easier to get information on. And of course, we try our best. I'm sure all of us pageant analysts do our due diligence in trying to give enough attention to all the girls. But Louis Portelis said in that video, and I'm going to echo a lot of what he said because I agree with it, that he felt like he fell a little short in giving every single 130 of those contestants enough coverage. And I agree. I fell short of it as well. It just 130, you guys. And they're only there for 2 weeks. And then they were in the hotel room for half the 2 weeks because, the Miss Universe organization, for whatever reason, wasn't allowing them to really step out the hotel room. Only certain ladies were going on activities. So if you weren't on one of those activities or you were in your hotel room, so your content was not a lot during the day, or you could only post during, breakfast, lunch, and dinner because that's the only time you were allowed outside of your hotel room. It was hard for people like media, like myself, I guess if you consider me media, whatever, it's hard to cover these contestants. And let's talk about Miss Universe 2024 for this year, for example, Miss Universe Denmark. I knew she had a history at Miss Grand International. I knew she was Miss Grand International Denmark. I knew she spoke a few languages. I knew she was popular amongst the Latinos, and especially in Mexico, she's popular. I knew she had a good, solid walk. She talked pretty decent. But it wasn't like Miss Universe Denmark was giving a lot of content. Miss Universe Denmark had a lot of content on her Instagram. Arguably, if you go through it, she was updating a lot. But it wasn't anything to let us really get to know the contestant. It wasn't content that would allow me to really know Miss Denmark off the rip. Whereas for Miss Universe Philippines, I already felt like I knew Chelsea because there was so much content. And Chelsea wasn't even the most outspoken contestant at Miss Universe, meaning that she's a lot more like docile. She's very Bea Luigi Gomez, as I've said before, just very like calmed nature. At least that's how she comes off. I don't know her in real life. And so it's not like she was putting herself out there so much, but the organization provided enough content for us pageant analysts to get to know her. And so then when you get to know a contestant more because of how the organization has set that contestant up for success, it's hard to not have a sentimental attachment towards them. Does that make sense? So are pageant analysts biased towards the Filipinos and other Sash Factor countries? Yes, probably. I'll say I am. But I'll also say with reason. Okay, for me personally, And I don't know Luis Portela's story, right? And I only mention him because he literally moved to the Philippines. So, like, when I think about, like, these biases, I think about people talking about him. First and foremost, I want to restate Luis Portela is in a position that I would love to be in. I aspire to be as successful as him. I wish him nothing but success. And this is not me talking about him or for him. I guess it is me talking about him, but not in a negative way. And it's not me trying to talk for him. So I'll just talk about myself. For me personally, I'm Indian. Oh, excuse me. Like, I'm like ethnically Indian. Like, my dad is from India. But I live in America. And if you know anything about Indian Americans, as in Indians who live in America like myself, pageantry is not a big deal. Miss World might be a big deal in India, but even here in America, the Indian Americans are not, it's not like there's a abundance of us. And if there is, we are far and few in between. And I also lived in Ohio. For those of you guys who did not grow up in the US, Ohio is not a state that is like the most populated, diverse, like, oh my God, state. We have a lot of Indians now, today, but back when I was growing up, I was the only Indian kid in my class. Does that put it in perspective? So then you take that, right? And then you get into the fact that also there's not a lot of pageant fans. I didn't grow up like, oh my God, like, yes, let's go pageants. I love pageants. It wasn't until 2018 when I had a fraternity brother who graduated college, and he invited me to his house and, a few of our friends to his house to celebrate. And Miss Universe 2018 was on, and he is Filipino. So I was with him and his family, and they're all Filipino, and they were really, really into Miss Universe. At the time, I knew about Miss Universe, but I was never like, oh my God, woo, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And I was watching Miss Universe 2018, my first ever edition, and what an edition to watch. I mean, can you blame me for not getting hooked after that? That showed me a whole different side of pageantry that I never understood. Watching Catriona Gay specifically was like watching, I mean, she's like a goddess. Like, she literally is just so good at it. And it was so exciting. And that year was just so competitive. And seeing how excited they got was incredible. So I started getting more into pageantry. And then I met someone. And this person was Filipino, and we were together for about 3 years. And they also were very much into pageants. And because they were Filipino, everyone that they knew who were into pageants were also Filipino. So I got really quickly introduced to, I was like one Indian and then like 30 Filipinos around me. And obviously that meant that a lot of times when we were talking about pageantry, it would be about the Filipino queens. But they still accepted me. They still let me talk about Miss India. They would hype her up with me. And whenever Miss Universe would come around, they always would be like, let's go Miss India as well. And it was really just such a cool feeling. And I didn't have any other Indians to talk about Miss Universe with. I just had a bunch of Filipinos. So am I biased? Probably a little bit, because Filipinos were the ones who kind of took me in like their own. They created a space for me to talk about pageantry. They didn't kick me out. They weren't like, get away, you're not Filipino, you can't talk with us. They were like, no, like, come, let's talk about it. And if, when Hernas Sandu won, I had so many Filipino, I mean, all Filipinos. I didn't have any Indian pageant friends at the time. When Hernas Sandu won, it was all Filipinos who were being so kind to me, congratulating me, and I them as well, because Bea made top 5 that year. So I can't speak for people like Luis Portela, but remember, he is from Cuba. He immigrated to Canada. Neither of those, Cuba hadn't been in pageantry. I mean, she just came back after 50 plus years to Miss Universe this year, and Canada's not a sash factor country. So I can imagine that same feeling of isolation and loneliness. And India was on the stage. It wasn't like there wasn't a Miss India. There was a Miss India. There's just no one for me who was to talk about it with who was Indian. Luis Portela, there's not even a Miss Cuba. The Filipino people, I'm telling you, they're very kind in the sense that they will adopt you into their pageant groups, their spaces. And you almost can't help but like cheer on. Like, they don't make you feel like you're a foreigner. I never felt like I was a foreigner. I was an outsider. So I always felt like, oh, Miss Universe Philippines, Miss Universe Philippines. Like, I was there with them because I had watched Miss Universe Philippines from day one, like preliminary activities. Okay. Like, literally preliminary activities. I was watching it from day one. So I was super invested in the Filipino queens because I have gotten to know them. And Miss Universe India until this year wasn't even broadcasting live stream finales or preliminaries. And they would do it on, like, I think MTV in India. I don't have access to that here in the US. I don't have access to the finales. And it wouldn't come out until 2 or 3 months later anyway. So the content and the accessibility to my own queens from India was limited. I wasn't able to establish a relationship with them beyond the fact that they were Miss Universe India. And of course, I have a bias towards Indian queens too, because I am Indian. I'm very proudly Indian. I will never ever deny being Indian or deny my Indianness or try to put down India. But I think you guys have to understand that bias is in everyone. Who do you root for first? Your country, right? Exactly. That's bias. That's bias. You are not you. Obviously, I'm talking to people in general. When I say you, I'm talking in general. People in general are quick to say, my queen doesn't need any help. My queen is perfect in talking. My queen is perfect in walking. My queen is this, and that. Because it's their bias. You know? See what I'm saying? It just happens to be that with a lot of pageant analysts, we may come from countries that aren't as popular, or there aren't as many people to talk to about pageantry with, and maybe it's the Venezuelanos or the Colombianos, or in my case the Filipinos, or in someone else's case the Thais or the Vietnamese or the Indonesians who adopted them in and allowed them a safe space to be pageant fans. And I think that is why sometimes certain vloggers and analysts have certain biases towards certain countries. Um, and then, even after my partner who was Filipino and I separated, my current roommate is Filipino, and he loves pageantry. So obviously I'm still exposed to so much Filipino pageantry, and everyone who is around me in real life is Filipino. Now, I'm thankful for this channel because I have gotten to meet a lot of Indian pageant fans. And that's part of the reason why I created this channel, was because I did want to meet people who were Indian, who were, also as proud of Miss Universe India, Miss Grand India, etc. as I was. And the thing is, like, I already met those people. It was the Filipinos, but I still wanted to talk about the little nuances that maybe only an Indian would understand. So, this channel was made for me to build a community, but not just to build a community of more Filipinos and more Indians, but to build a community of all types of people. Because I started to think, wow, if I felt this way, I felt lonely, and I was lucky enough to stumble upon some Filipinos who were nice enough to adopt me into, their pageant space and allow me to still be Indian, but also allow me to pretty much adopt their queens and, feel like their queens are mine as well, like their wins are mine as well. How many people have that same feeling of isolation in the pageant community and they don't have someone? What about the other countries that aren't as highlighted as well? I wanted to create this channel because I wanted to provide a space where we can highlight contestants of everywhere. And I'm not the best at it because I do have biases. I am biased, not on purpose. I try to be as aware of it as possible, but at the end of the day, I probably will always have a little bit of a bias towards Indian and Filipino queens. But I do my best to not. I do my best to be fair. Okay, I really, really do. And when I do talk about India or the Philippines, I do my best to be honest with my opinions about them. Not mean. Because you guys, you don't have to be mean to be honest. Okay, it's not what you say, it's how you say it sometimes, right? Are pageant analysts biased? Yes, of course. But a lot of times there is a reason. There's some type of connection or some type of history between them and a certain country. Maybe it's their home country. Maybe it's a different country in my case, or in seemingly Luis Porteles' case. Although I don't want to speak over him. He has his own voice. He has the right to speak to his own story. So again, I have nothing but respect for him. I literally aspire to be as good as him. But a lot of us have reasons why we have biases, but it's ignorant to say that no pageant analyst is void of bias. I mean, even in this video, half of it is me talking about Philippines. Like, that's just what I know, you guys. I mean, even though, this year Miss Universe India had a live stream of their finales and I think prelims, that was pretty much it, though. I wasn't able to really get access to the Queen's preliminary activities, and I wasn't really as much in the loop. I hope that changes. I hope that I can continue to get more informed about India and Indian queens, and I'm very proud of them. Don't get me wrong. Like, hello, like Rachel Gupta winning Miss Grand India was amazing. Um, so yeah, I don't know what the point of this video really was. I just it was just on my mind about how a lot of people feel pageant analysts can be biased, and I feel like especially for smaller non-sash factor countries that don't get highlighted as often, I wanted to make this video because I wanted to acknowledge that their feelings are valid. Like your feelings that you may have about pageant analysts never highlighting your country is so valid. And that's why, I got some people making fun of me because I started to speak out about Miss Universe Samoa. And I was like, why not though? The girl is beautiful. She's a queen in her own right. Samoan people are so amazing and they're already so underrepresented, at least here in the US. Pacific Islanders in general are so underrepresented. And I just wanted to highlight their queen. I liked her. And I mean, it's, like at the end of the day, like those countries like Samoa and otherwise, I mean, Samoa's a little bit newer to the pageant scene now, but I mean, other countries that are smaller, but still they have like a small group of, persistent fans. They oftentimes feel ignored and left behind. And I guess part of this video was to explain, but not make an excuse, but rather make a declaration that I will try to do better. But better doesn't mean I'm going to be void of biases. Like I probably will always have some level of love for Indian and Filipino queens. But at the same time, I want to do my duty in highlighting and being better about also speaking to other queens because there are so many queens who deserve to be highlighted, and each one of them works so equally hard. That's just the truth, right? Even as an Indian, I'm never gonna say that someone else's contestant worked like, oh, Miss India's worked harder than everyone else. Like, I think that's a very unrealistic mindset to carry. Every one of these ladies works so hard in these pageants, and so like they deserve to be highlighted. And I am still trying to figure out this whole pageant analyst thing. I'm still not perfect at it. I still make mistakes. I still slip up. But I'm trying. And I just wanted to make this video early on in my pageant analyst career. One, to not make a promise to you guys, because again, I'm not going to promise you guys I won't have bias, but to make a commitment to try to be better, to try to improve, to try to take your guys' feedback back. Like I realized in my Dark Horses video that I made, the first one, people were like, these are not dark horses. You're just highlighting countries that are popular and that people have on their top list. What is this? You guys were right. I was not highlighting dark horses. I was highlighting countries that were popular. I thought because Finland and Zimbabwe, and they're not sash factor countries, that makes them a dark horse, but they might not be sash factor countries, but they were popular countries this edition. And they were already being highlighted a ton. And it wasn't right. I should have been a dark horse should be countries that are not only typically not sash factors, but they're not highlighted. They're not being talked about. It's a moment to bring recognition to contestants that are overlooked. That's the whole point of a dark horses video. And yeah, so excuse me. So I did my best to listen to the feedback, and I made a part 2 because I want to be better. I want to progressively get better. So what I will tell you guys is that if you guys tell me kindly, please kindly, not meanly, please. I'm a pretty sensitive guy, you guys. I know people are telling me if you're gonna be in this space, you should have some thick skin, but I really want to cultivate a space where I don't have to have thick skin. I like my soft, plushy skin, okay? I don't want to, but like, please don't attack me if you think I'm being biased. Just say, hey, could you highlight this contestant too? I really do try my best. I had a few people say, can you highlight Pakistan? Yeah, sure. Of course. Why not? Someone should. Why not me? Why can't it be me? But maybe I'm not always aware. And again, a lot of the time when we make leaderboards or we make highlight videos of certain contestants, it's just because we have a lot of content with them and we're familiar with them. Like Chelsea Manalo and Ria Singha. I'm Indian, so of course I wanted to make a video on Ria Singha. And I'm not Filipino, but they adopted me. The Filipino pageant fans adopted me in my hometown. I'm not talking about like universally. And I watched Miss Universe Philippines from the get-go. I fell in love with Chelsea Manalo. I got to really have the privilege of getting to see her journey from the get-go. So I just wanted to make a video about her, highlighting her. And, I still made constructive critiques for both Rhea and Chelsea, but I try my best to be kind when I say them and not be too vicious or rude. I don't want these ladies to ever come across my videos, and both Chelsea and Rhea have come across my Instagram stories before, more than once, and so God forbid they ever come across one of my videos and I'm saying something heinous. I would hate to hurt their feelings. I just said that I'm sensitive, so I would hate to hurt their feelings. But the reason why I make videos separate for those two contestants is because I'm familiar with those two. One is my country, right, of origin, my motherland, and the other one is, I mean, my second motherland. Guys, I've literally been to the Philippines. I spent almost like a little bit over a month there, traveling, like all the Philippines. I was in the barangays, guys. I wasn't just in the streets. Like, I wasn't in these big fancy hotels. I was literally in the barangays as well, okay? Like, the barangays of Bulacan, where Chelsea Manalo literally came from. Actually, she's literally near Mekawayan, and that's literally the barangay that I was staying. It was in Mekawayan, Bulacan. So I literally, like, the area that Chelsea Manalo was in, like, I was literally staying in that very similar area, okay? Literally eating mang inasal, like crema de leche, halo halo, like every chance I could. So, like, I have really grown a love for just not their queens, but their people and their country, because it was honestly my favorite country. I had more fun there than I had it in India, admittedly. Although I still have so much more of India to see. But yeah, I don't know what the point of this was. I don't know if I just exposed myself for being biased and this video is a mistake. I'm going to post it because I just think that it should be talked about. And I didn't really talk more about other pageant analysts because this video was not meant to call out people. I know I did mention Danny and Lewis in this video, but I was just trying to parallel maybe my experience with what I would suppose maybe Lewis went through as well. It wasn't meant to be in a bad way. I was just trying to parallel, like, oh, I can maybe understand or kind of relate a little bit, although everyone's experience is individual. And again, what I'm saying is I'm not speaking for Lewis or anyone else. He has his own voice. He can talk about it on his own accord if he even wants to. He's not required to and obligated to. And also, I just want to say this one last thing. Yes, I might be a little bit biased towards India and the Filipino queens, but they're good queens. You're not going to call a Venezuelan queen bad almost ever, correct? Same stands true for an Indian queen and a Filipino queen. I mean, same goes for all the countries, but these queens, because they come from more prominent pageant country backgrounds, they have access to more resources. It's unfortunate that some countries just inevitably they won't have the resources to get the same level of like training, right? But because the Philippines, India, Venezuela, Colombia, etc., 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 Thailand have access to a lot of phenomenal pageant coaches, they produce really well-rounded queens, and that's why we probably also see consistently the same 10 countries being thrown out there when pageant analysts are talking and highlighting contestants that they feel like will perform well because they were prepared well. And that's not the fault of the queens that weren't prepared well. It's unfortunate. We live in a world where things are not equitable and they're not equal, and that includes pageant training. Yeah. Bye, you guys. If you guys like this video, I said bye too early. If you guys like this video and you want to join the Reyna family, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. And you are now part of the Reyna family. You're part of it anyways. You don't have to subscribe. This is for fun. Also go ahead and comment your thoughts down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear them. And I would love to hear your feelings too. If you come from a smaller country and you feel like you're not highlighted, put your country's name down below. And maybe I can, do like a history of this country in pageantry or something. I don't know. I'll figure something out. I would love to highlight your country as well. And this is not me doing like a little pity thing. I'm like, oh, you want like me to highlight you? Like, who am I? I barely have, what I'm saying? I'm not some type of like blown up. Who am I? I'm just another person who wants to be fair as possible. That's why I'm saying that. I'm not trying to be like rude or give you guys some type of like, oh, you guys need special treat. You guys need my help. I'm not egotistical. But yeah, I hope you guys like this video. If you did and you want to be a part of the Reyna family, go ahead and hit the subscription button down below. My Instagram will be linked in the description box in the comment section as well. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching my video and supporting me. Muchas gracias. Maraming salamat po. Arigato gozaimasu. Sheshe ni. Shukran. Shukriya. Dhanyavad. And thank you. Bye, Reynas.